Welcome to another episode of the Blockcrunch, the podcast where we talk to investors, entrepreneurs, and builders in the blockchain space for 20 minutes. I'm your host, Jason Choi, and today my co-host David will be talking to Will Warren, the co-founder of 0x, the open protocol for decentralized exchanges. So you've probably heard this term a lot, decentralized exchanges. What does it actually mean? Now, if you've bought a Bitcoin or an Ether or a Litecoin on any platform before, you've probably done this through what is called a centralized exchange. In other words, an exchange that's operated and maintained by a private company, a centralized body. So these are, for example, the GDEX, the Gemini, the Bittrex, or the Binance of the world. Now, if you've paid any attention to crypto news, you've probably realized that a lot of regulation and scrutiny are starting to form from regulatory bodies around these exchanges. And that's making a lot of people very worried. A lot of people are concerned that the private companies that are operating these exchanges could get shut down, and these type of heavy-handed and some would say draconian regulation could prove harmful to the development of this early stage technology. So a lot of people are starting to see decentralized exchanges as a potential solution for this, because instead of relying on a company that could be shut down to facilitate all of your trades, you are trading directly on a peer-to-peer basis with the person that wants to trade with you on a decentralized exchange. And protocols like 0x or Kyber Network are protocols or code that is made to facilitate these types of peer-to-peer transactions without much of a need for a central governing body. Now, besides being harder to regulate, decentralized exchanges might also be a safer alternative to centralized exchanges. Because currently, if you're holding Bitcoin on, for example, Bittrex, you're not really the custodian of your own assets. You're trusting the company behind Bittrex to hold your assets for you. So if one day, if they ever become malicious or if they're hacked, then you might lose everything that you own on that exchange. Whereas on a decentralized exchange, you are always in control of your own private keys. In other words, you are the true owner of your own assets on a decentralized exchange, whereas on a centralized exchange, you are trusting someone else to take care of those things for you. But I'm pretty sure I'm missing a lot of things. So instead of having me just ramble on and on, I'll just let my co-host David talk to Will Warren, the co-founder of 0x, one of the most exciting projects in this space. So let's buckle up and dive right in.
This is this worldwide phenomenon.
If you could start out by telling us a bit about yourself and how you first got interested in tech and also specifically blockchain and crypto.
So I originally started out interested in engineering and just general research, and I kind of saw myself going down a research track. I spent a couple of years working at Los Alamos National Laboratory doing physics research, and after my stay there, I went back to San Diego to start a doctoral program. I had been interested in Bitcoin since 2011. I remember just first kind of hearing about it and thinking it was really interesting technology, but the use cases weren't there, but continued to keep an eye on it. And then my girlfriend, now wife, eventually decided to leave finance in New York to join Coinbase in 2013, early on. So naturally, we were both just like super fascinated with the technology. We were both keeping a close eye on it, and as more and more legitimate use cases were realized, she joined Coinbase, and I was following along. Pretty soon after Ethereum was released, I thought Ethereum was the most important piece of technology to come about since the internet. And so at that point, I decided to quit my PhD program and focus full-time on Ethereum.
And so specifically then, where did the idea for 0x come from, and why did you decide to work on it?
Originally, I quit grad school to focus on Ethereum. I was interested in building a standard for derivatives on Ethereum, derivative tokens, because cryptocurrencies are extremely volatile, and I felt that derivatives could allow people to hedge against this volatility, and that would be very useful. But what I found out very soon after, kind of speccing it out and building all the smart contracts, I kind of figured out that these derivative tokens wouldn't be very useful unless there was a place where they could be traded. And there needed to be a decentralized exchange to do that. At the time, this was late 2016, and right about the time I met my co-founder, Amir Bandiali, there were no decentralized exchanges that existed. And so, we basically realized that in order for derivative tokens and all sorts of different use cases to become possible, there really just needs to be decentralized exchange functionality.
And what would you say were some of the early challenges when you were first starting out, and also current challenges that you're facing right now?
But early on, it was really challenging to get funding for these a project like 0x. At the time, people kind of thought it was really out there, and pay for legal fees, start adding people to our team and stuff. That was really challenging. But we ended up meeting Olaf Carlson Lee from Polychain, back when Polychain was just a $10 million fund, back when 0x was just an early prototype. And Olaf led a very small seed round that allowed us to start hiring and start engaging with legal counsel, and really got the project started. That's changed quite drastically. The hard part is coming up with an idea that's decent, and the easy part's getting many millions of dollars, unfortunately. But I would say nowadays the most challenging part of running a blockchain project or company is there's a lot of projects, there's a lot of money moving around, and I think for us specifically, we need to hire the top talent, the very best people in the world, to come help us build 0x. And it's really easy for people that have been deep in the cryptocurrency space for a long time to differentiate between the projects that are really addressing challenging technical problems and building something that's going to stand the test of time, and the many scam projects or projects that are raising many millions of dollars but don't really need to. So for us, we have a really talented team already, but in order to get more people that are new to the cryptocurrency industry to know that 0x is a really legitimate project and what we're doing is worthwhile, it can be hard to communicate that for recruiting purposes.
And so I'm curious, especially early on during the first few months, how do you convince other developers to join you guys, and also developers to build projects on top of 0x? How do you convince those first few people?
So right after we did our seed round with Polychain, actually it was at the same time we were still talking with them. We posted our white paper to the subreddit r Ethereum. This was back in February. This random guy named Fabio Berger sent Amir and I a cold email saying, "Hey, I read your white paper. Seems really cool. We should talk." And Fabio turned out to be this amazingly talented engineer, software developer, and Amir and I were fortunate enough to convince him to join us. And Fabio is the very first person to join Amir and I at 0x. So our colleagues that joined our team subsequently, were people that understood what we were trying to do with deep technical knowledge, and then in terms of kind of getting developers interested later on, maybe third-party developers, people that aren't actually building 0x but are building decentralized exchanges and applications on top of the protocol. This was the type of thing where we were just kind of shocked how there was so much interest, and we just were not expecting it. Yeah, so I mean, we launched 0x protocol on the mainnet in August of 2017, and since then there's 10, 12 different completely independent developer teams that are building decentralized exchanges on top of 0x.
And so I'm curious then, what are some of the most interesting decentralized exchanges and applications that are being built on top of 0x? And I guess a follow-on to that would be, what's the role of the 0x team when it comes to supporting these applications being built on top of 0x?
First, I would say that every single one of these teams has been working super hard, and they're all talented. We have a lot of respect for all of them. It's really important for us as developers of the protocol to remain neutral and unbiased when it comes to working with all of these different teams. We want them all to succeed, but it can be a little bit weird because in some ways they're competing with each other. These teams are a little further along in shipping, a live product that you can use today than others. A couple examples of really cool decentralized exchanges that are built on 0x that you can use today. So the very first one to go live on the Ethereum mainnet, meaning you could actually go to this website and you could actually trade with anyone in the world trustlessly using 0x protocol. It was built by a single developer over the course of a few weeks, and it was called Kin Alpha. Pretty impressive, a little bit rough around the edges, but it was a hobby project built by one person in their spare time, which was really impressive. Another really impressive decentralized exchange is radarrelay.com. You can go and use it today. Actually, just in the last few days, they've been doing a couple $1 million worth of volume each day.
Why is it important that we're seeing like Radar Relay and like a bunch of other decentralized exchanges? What are your thoughts on the market, the overall market of decentralized exchanges, and do you think like the market will consolidate eventually?
I think that the trend, the long-term trend that we really believe we're going to see over the next years is that every single asset that can be assigned a value will become tokenized and represented as a digital token, on the Ethereum blockchain or maybe other blockchains in the future. And there will be millions of different tokens. Surely they'll need to be able to be traded. So if this is in the future, and we believe it is, then I think that there's going to be a number of different markets that they're all going to kind of have to have their own exchanges that cater to those markets. There will be a wide diversity of decentralized exchanges that are serving different customers that are interested in trading in different markets. So I don't think we're in like a situation where it's like a winner takes all kind of thing. First of all, just if you look at the crypto markets, the centralized exchanges for crypto markets, there's a variety of different crypto exchanges that are successful, and I think we'll see not only a bunch of different successful decentralized exchanges that are competing with each other, but I think we'll also see a variety of different decentralized exchanges that are kind of focused on specific markets and not competing with each other. So some examples could be decentralized exchanges that focus specifically on derivatives or prediction markets, sports betting, real estate, scarce digital goods. So things like, I don't know, crypto kitties. I don't know if you saw that. So it's kind of this funny, unique, niche market, but it's actually doing like millions of dollars in volume just for this one scarce digital good. So yeah, I think that we're going to end up seeing, just tons of different decentralized exchanges built on 0x, and they'll all be kind of benefiting each other by building on the same infrastructure.
And how about in terms of regulations when it comes to these decentralized exchanges? How do you see that like playing out in the next few years? And
right, so this is a challenging question, and not just for decentralized exchanges, but just decentralized technologies in general. There's these technologies that are being developed, and they really don't fit within the existing legal framework. And regulators are catching up still to the technology. I think that specifically with respect to decentralized exchange, the concept of non-custodial exchange, so an exchange where you're never really giving up custody of your own funds to someone else. It's peer-to-peer. There isn't really any legal framework that our lawyers are aware of that directly issue. And so as far as we're concerned, we're building the infrastructure, we're putting down the rails. It's up to the people that are using them to use them responsibly, and to get good legal counsel. And at the same time, we're working with our legal team and with some of the lawyers at Coin Center to try and educate regulators and make sure that they can make good decisions, educated decisions in the next few years.
And in terms of the scalability when it comes to like building on top of like Ethereum, I'm curious like what your thoughts on the overall topic is, and what are some approaches that you think should be taken to like solve this like problem?
Yeah. So this is probably the most fundamental challenge that we need to solve as a community. Scalability. So I think first and foremost, what we need to be doing, and that what we are doing, is doing a lot of just sort of fundamental research and development on potential solutions. So things like sharding and side chains, plasma chains, state channels. These are all uh, promising areas to do research in, but it's going to take time. Um, it's not the type of thing where you can just kind of force research to yield solutions. It takes time and effort and iteration, and eventually you can come up with solutions. I think that I do feel that there are really talented, competent teams that are doing this research. Um, at the same time, I really uh, respect Vitalik and the Ethereum Foundation. Uh, they recently announced that they're giving out research grants for scaling solutions that can range from $50,000 up to $1 million. So I think that's like a very wise use of their resources, and it also gives some of the brightest minds in academia a chance to get funding and address these issues. As far as Zero X is concerned, I think that um, Zero X is designed from the ground up to be as efficient as possible when it comes to consuming blockchain resources. So the way it's designed in that, a blockchain transaction is only created when a trade is being executed, but not when counterparties are attempting to kind of pair off and find each other. So I think that, as far as we're concerned, Zero X is pretty efficient. We're going to continue optimizing as we can. But I think that their scalability is kind of a hard research problem, and it's going to take time and persistence to solve.
Gotcha. That makes sense. And in terms of for Zero X right now, like what would you say are like the big things that you guys are focusing on for the next few months and for this year in general?
Yeah. So right now we spend a lot of our time working with developers that are creating decentralized exchanges on top of Zero X. We've created developer tools that they're using in their own application. They're our customers first and foremost, so we spend a lot of our time making sure that they're happy, that their feedback is heard, and that we're continually improving the tools that we're building for them. Um, so that's something that we continually focus on. Uh, at the same time, we're super focused on version 2 of Zero X protocol, and we're actively speccing it out and preparing to get a proof of concept completed in the next couple of months. And version 2 is going to have some really interesting new features. Like we want to be able to support trading ERC 721 tokens, so non-fungible Ethereum tokens, so things like CryptoKitties or scarce, one-of-a-kind scarce digital goods like digital real estate, stuff like that, among a variety of other optimizations. And then governance. So decentralized governance is probably one of the most challenging problems to solve in the decentralized technology space. A lot of interesting ideas about how to approach the problem. There is definitely not a clear standard way of doing governance, but we're working closely with the Aragon team, and we're looking at a couple of ways that we can kind of deploy something that's the first step in that direction.
what are you most excited about for 2018 this year when it comes to like the industry as a whole?
Yeah. So I think there are a lot of promising projects that have been kind of just working kind of quietly and during 2017, and I think they will start to come online in 2018. So, for example, things like Augur, the prediction market, decentralized prediction market platform. I think things like Cosmos, which is, you know, a separate EVM blockchain that uses Tendermint consensus. Well, that's Ethermint specifically. It's really a network of blockchains that exist in parallel. A lot of really talented people got involved in the space, and we'll start to see the fruits of the labor here.
That's exciting. And the last question I had is, what would you say is an unusual habit or like thing that not many people know about you?
So my wife and I were long distance for a long time, and wanted to spend time together. So we started playing this computer game, Dota 2.
Really?
And started getting, it was more just for fun and messing around, spending time together. But we kind of got really into it, started playing more frequently. This was when she was at Coinbase, and her, the co-founder of Coinbase, Fred Ursum, started joining us just randomly. So the three of us and sometimes other folks, and started doing that more and more frequently, and got to know Fred really well. And my wife was always encouraging of me to pursue crypto. So one thing led to another, and I think that was one of the big reasons why I ended up leaving to come work in the space.
That's awesome. That's the questions I had. Thanks again for taking time to do the interview.
So this marks the end of today's episode. And if you liked what you listened to, please do subscribe and rate us on whatever platform you're listening to this on, because it does help us get this out to more people. Once again, I've been your host, Jason Choi. You can follow me on Twitter at Mr. Jason Choi, or follow my co-host, David, on Twitter at Ongchoco. And with that being said, I will see you at the next episode.
Why y'all be frontin', man, let's go. With that work. Why y'all be hating, man, let's go.